Are you ready? What's my name? What's my name? Say Kareem Ali. Say Kareem Ali. You're listening to
Are you serious?
the Hip Hop Debate Show.
Okay, so hear me out.
The official podcast of Kareem Ali. In about 2 seconds, Kareem Ali will begin to speak. Okay, Kareem Ali TV. We're back again with the Are You Serious podcast. And right today, I have my man, welcome back, Slankster Hughes, one of the best poets that we've ever heard of, world renowned, aka Slick Vic Low, BKA the Lyrical Leviathan. What's going on, brother? How you doing today?
Hello, Governor.
Yeah, man. So listen, today we had some sad news in the last couple of weeks, especially in 2020. We lost one of the most skilled MCs of all time, one of the most underrated MCs that I think we've ever heard. Daniel Dumile, formerly Zev Love X of KMD, and we all know him as MF Doom, Metal Face Doom, motherfucking
Metal Face
Doom.
Metal Fingers Doom, aka Victor Vaughn. You know what I'm saying? AKA your favorite rapper's favorite rapper. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Now, this is not normally we normally have a more debate format for the Are You Serious podcast, but today we're just gonna pay homage to Doom. And before I let you,
King Ghidorah. A lot of people
King
forget about
Ghidorah.
King Ghidorah, the multi-headed snake monster version of Daniel Dumile, weird stuff.
Absolutely. Listen, man, look, I'm just gonna say a few words about Doom before you get started. In about 2 seconds, Kareem Ali will begin to speak. Listen, MF Doom, man, I first got my introduction to him, like, I would say late high school, early college, when I think it was Operation Doomsday album had come out. That was a long time ago. I mean, I might have been, maybe I was in middle school. I don't even remember, but I wasn't really paying attention to it too much because I didn't understand hip hop on that deep of a level. But it just looked like this comic book supervillain was on the cover. But it wasn't until Mad Villainy came out that I was like, wow. And I still was on more. I was on more popular hip hop artists at the time. But I had an older friend who was a big Doom fan who was trying to get me to really listen and to take in what was really going on. And when I started to listen with my new ears, as I started to understand more and more about the craft and the art form, the art of rhyming, I started to hear some brilliance from this guy, and I understood very quickly that he was a rapper's rapper. It was like every bar was like this condensed story within each bar, and it was just like so many even with his amazing technique, it was like a lot of storytelling going on, which with each line it was like a contained concept in each series of lines, or every 4-bar couplet, every 4-bar quatrain, it was like a whole story going on, a whole concept in which he would play out with his words. He would also cut out a lot of the filler lines and force you to really try to pay attention to and understand what he was saying. He wasn't gonna, just drag you along to it. He's one of those guys you had to rewind and really delve deep into his lyrics to really get a greater understanding of what it was he was talking about. But one of the things I really liked about Doom is that, and watching a lot of his interviews over the time, trying to figure out why he wore the mask, he wanted to just be about music, Vic. He wanted to be about just the art of rhyme. Like at the time period in the late 90s, the mid to late 90s, the early 2000s, hip hop became much more about, what brand of Ciroc you were drinking and what type of shoes you had on and what type of status you had and what your street credibility was.
Video vixens,
the video vixens,
and all of that.
But do you rhyme good? We get caught up into all these other things, but at the end of the day,
have one chain or 2 chains later.
What the music sound like? 2 chains. What the music sound like? Do you rhyme good? Can you get it in? Do you get busy on the microphone? And he did it without any theatrics. He didn't even elevate his voice or use a lot of vocal inclinations. He just kept a real straight tone, monotone, and just kicked hard-hitting, heavy, back-breaking bars. And
incredible couplets.
Incredible couplets. Another thing I liked about the brother, like, we get caught up so much into, if you're not a street MC, if you don't have gun bars, then you're not relevant. You're corny. It's nerd rap. But Doom was wrapping circles around any clown that was pushing packages from 97 to 2009. It didn't matter. MF Doom was coming for your neck, and he had a much higher skill level than most of those guys. What do you say about MF Doom in the wake of his death?
Well, for me personally, Doom was really, really a major influence of mine in that. So for myself, going way back as I was developing artistically, I've always used the advent, without getting too deep into it. It came out of a psychological diagnosis of my own as a child. Where it was like, hey, you might have some kind of bipolar tendencies. And I kind of, instead of being like, hey, I guess they're going to put me on medication, like my mother was like, nah. And so I really developed all of that into various artistic personas and personalities, and just channeled my own mental abilities, or what was seen as disabilities, into my creativity. And that's very early on started developing multi personas as an MC and as an artist. And so when Operation Doomsday came out, and I was like, plus I was a comic book nerd, and loved Marvel the most, and I seen like Doctor Doom on his album cover, and it was like, whoa, what is this? And it's like, yo, these beats are freaking weird and really abstract and dope, and he's just rhyming about all kinds of weird comic book things and nerd concepts and stuff. Even before nerd was like a cool term, like he was just kind of going in on some hip hop comic book nerdism. And then after that King Ghidorah album came out, and yo was like rapping from the concept of being a giant 9-headed lizard, 7-headed lizard, and what have you, like from Godzilla. I was like, okay, this is my kind of weird shit right here. And then so really, even more than influence, MCs like MF Doom and like Kool Keith, they showed me that like there was validation in like being yourself. Like you could be as creative as you want to in hip hop. You can push the creative envelope. If you got multiple personalities, like that doesn't have to be looked at something that is like weird or negative. Like, yo, you just too weird to rap. It was validation, and you can be yourself. You can be who you are and be as creative as you want to be. You don't have to try to be like everybody else. And as someone who's always that way and always felt like, why can't I just be as weird as I want to be? For me, it was like validation. It was like, wow, like you can do that, and it can be okay. Like you don't have to feel like you're like an oddball just because you're being yourself as an artist. And so Doom was definitely one of those MCs who really like validated the kind of creativity that I was channeling and being drawn to myself. And so yeah, like I remember the Doomsday, because another thing about Doom was really dope is that he was really one of the pioneers of like independent hip hop in terms of like underground hip hop, and how the internet became such a tool for the growth of the underground. Like underground hip hop, like early 90s, you're talking about something that like all of a sudden in a small frame of time expanded because of the internet. The underground went from being here to being here. It was like the underground expanded massively because of internet sites where people were buying directly from the artist. And so the underground grew. Independent artists grew so fast because all of a sudden you didn't have to rely on a label, on a major label, or being like, how do I get these records to the record stores? Like you could just sell them right off undergroundhiphop.com, right off, artorhyme.com, like various websites where like people was just buying underground hip hop.
And Doom was like the underground hip hop LeBron. Look, Doom would go to a label, say for 2 albums, and then leave, and then go to another label. 2 albums,
like,
leave.
Give me what's up front, back end sucks. You know what I mean? Like, and so even from a business standpoint, he was a trailblazer as well as creatively. He's one of the pioneers of what we know as underground hip hop. And so I remember at the time, like you would be up on stuff that people didn't know existed. So like that would kind of up your hip hop cred. Like, yo, you heard about that Doom, you heard about that little brother, that Jay Dilla, that, you know what I mean, like that atmosphere, things like that. And so the average rap fan who thought like, yo, I'm really up on hip hop, like they was up on mainstream hip hop, but like the real trailblazing,
Right.
innovative hip hop that was ahead of its time
Well,
and that
people
was
were
creating what people would be
creative.
doing in the future. Like that was the stuff that was on the underground, and Doom was one of the trailblazing luminaries of that. And then Mad Villainy came out, and then it all shifted to a whole another level, because people heard that album, the collaboration with him and Madlib at a time when both of them were like being talked about. It's like, yo, have you heard this? Have you heard this guy? And they
Right.
all of a sudden they had an album. It was like, whoa. And then you looked at the cover and it was like, what is this? Like weird ass mask and shit. Because it wasn't a cartoon on that cover. It was just really Doom in the mask. And it was just like, you heard that shit. It was like, oh, this is like underground fucking Illmatic. Like, what is this? And
One of the
like,
things I
for
appreciate,
Doom, from that point on, everything changed.
and one of the things I appreciate about Doom and artists like that, even though there's no other artist that's really like that, he was one of a kind. I mean, you do have some other hip hop weirdos like Cool Keith, and as you mentioned before, some guys like that. But I mean, just the ability the desire to be creative and the desire to give hip hop what it was missing at the time, and that's imagination. Thinking outside the box and rapping in a way and using the words and the language to do the ultimate, to say something without actually saying it, to describe it with the words until it forms a picture in the mind of the listener. That's the true art
Man,
form of where it goes to. Talk a little bit about his technique and the extreme skill level that other artists, that other rappers seem to admire so much, and why they revere this man.
well, for starters, what a lot of people don't know about the Doom persona and the mask and everything, he started developing that at the poetry open mics at the New Eurekan in New York.
I didn't know that.
Like he would come with like before even the first mask, before the first mask got crafted by this artist that I think he just like knew from being in the park and shit. Like he would go to the New Eurekan poetry open mic with like a stocking cap on his head, like so like people could really see his face, and he'd sign up, and then he was spitting a lot of those early Doom rhymes on the open mic to gauge people's reaction. But he didn't want people's first response to be like, what does this nigga look like? And he wanted them to just like, okay, he's weird on the mask, and then just the rhymes to take over from there.
Right.
And so that was where he started developing a lot of the material. And then it's really something serious about Doom. It's crazy is that like you can tell that Doom was an enlightened individual. Like Doom's third eye was open. Like Doom would talk about a lot of really like deep and like spiritual things, and like really like next level like black revolutionary things, and like enlightened like information about next level shit, like on some like Doom's like this black god shit on it'd be like woven within all of the intricate rhymes. You know what I mean? Like he throwing in some shit in there, you know what I'm saying, about like Anunnaki or something, or some
Right.
shit in there about like some Dr. York type shit. You could tell that he came up, you know what I mean, like in an enlightened environment where like he knew his knowledge itself was prevalent from a young age. And if you go back, you listen to the KMD rhymes, and he was Zev Love X. His name was Zev Love X. Like KMD was really pushing the envelope on some black consciousness shit.
They were.
You know what I mean? And so like with that background combined with the Doom persona and the comic book mythos, like it really created a very unique persona. Then you just add like the craftsmanship of the rhyming, you know what I mean, where he was really creating really intricate rhyme skills and abstract images, and combined with the enlightened knowledge about who he was as a black man. Like you had this really interesting gumbo of a style and an approach that like not too many other people had, like even among the underground artists.
Right.
And so it's all really, honestly, it was all very intricately planned out for like from day one. Like it's a lot of other really creative MCs that a lot of people are familiar with, that like he was like hanging out with, like in between the time when KMD ended and then when, like maybe 3 or 4 years later when he came back, like getting ready to do the Doom stuff. Del the Funky Homo Sapien, and a couple people like from that whole crew, and some other like underground New York MCs, like he would tell them about it. He told a lot of them about the Doom idea before he did it, and was like, how it was all planned out step by step. And they were like, that's crazy. Like that makes sense to me. You know, could you imagine like Dale the Funky Homo Sapien and MF Doom talking about like all of that shit before it happened, and then like he did it. You know what I mean? He did it like, you know what I mean, found a way to hook up with various underground labels and just like, no, like this is the whole idea. It's a whole mythology behind it. And like very few doing shit like that at the time.
Okay, let's switch tables a little bit. So it is a debate show, and Kareem Ali does like to talk a little shit. So I'm not going to disappoint you. What was MF Doom's best album between, in my opinion, Mad Villainy or MF Food? We need food. What say you?
So for me, it goes a little bit beyond those two. So for one, I would say the Doom album where he displays the most in his lyrics in terms of like knowledge of self and his own individual like enlightened information that he puts in the rhymes. I feel like Born Like This is the one where lyrically it's the best in terms of like that kind of content within the abstract lyricism. But I would say that for me, like when you talk about best Doom albums, I say that there's an elite three that are kind of in the class of their
Okay,
own.
well, name them then.
I think.
What are they?
I
Name
think
them.
that. I think that. I think that. Food,
spit them out.
is. I think that. I think that Food is definitely up there. I think the Food joint is definitely up there.
It sounds like you're talking with food in your mouth right now. Spit it out.
Are you serious? Nah. I think the Food joint is up there in the top three, and I think that the one that gets slept on a lot that is incredible, like just an incredible collaboration, is the Danger Doom.
Danger Doom was really dope.
With him and Danger Mouse.
It was really dope. But Vic, are you serious?
Danger Mouse.
MF Food featured an Anita Baker sample. And Anita Super. Who was doing that? Who did Anita like that?
So I would say that for me, Food and Danger Doom, you can rank them 2 and 3 interchangeably, depending on what you're categorizing. But Danger Mouse, like people know Danger Mouse from being the producer for Gnarls Barkley, but Danger Mouse really put his foot
in
that Danger Doom album, especially with like the drums and like the abstract boom bapism that he brought to it was just a perfect sonic backdrop for the abstract doom rhymes, and then conceptually like how they made a concept around it connected with like the Adult Swim cartoon interludes and stuff.
They did.
For someone like me who watched all of that stuff late at night, it was such a perfect marriage. So
it was a great marriage for me as well.
Actually, I think that one is amazing.
But listen, are you serious, Vic?
Like
listen.
Showcasing of Doom as an MC. Well, let me talk about the Food joint. In terms of showcasing Doom, both sides of Doom, in terms of his producing and his rhyming, like Food probably does that the best.
You're making my case for me with Food. You're making my case for me, Victor.
Are crazy. Lyrically on the Food joint, he really goes off.
He actually used samples from the early '80s Spider-Man. He used samples from the early '80s Spider-Man. Stan Lee talking
on there.
Bananas.
The Potholders joint with the Kane sample on the Potholders joint, like those are fucking ridiculous songs. Like that whole album is crazy too. But all that being said, the album that I think hovers above even those two, like the album that hovers above the whole catalog, and a lot of people will say this, is Mad Villainy. Like
everyone knows that one.
It is all.
Food struck me the hardest. I'm not gonna lie. Maybe it was because of the animation samples that they chose to take from cartoons that I watched as a kid, being an '80s baby. But I just felt like the combination of his rhyming, it was understandable for me. It really brought me into being a real true Doom fan. The production on the Food album I thought was next level. I do get your point about the Danger Doom and the combination of that, but Food was more entertaining to me. But I will submit to a Mad Villainy #1 selection, even though it wasn't my personal favorite, but it was up there in the top 3, like you say. The song he had accordion on there, with the production was just unusual and unique. Like who samples or creates an accordion, and then the rhyme style he chose to use.
It's like, what other producer is weird enough in his genius to be able to match Doom like every
It's
song
produced for
fits.
the artist you're
Doom,
producing for, and their particular style. It's amazing. It brings it out on another level.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's true. It truly was one of the greatest producer MC combinations
that
like
we've ever seen.
ever in terms of how perfectly it fit.
It was a
how
perfect
perfectly
merge.
fit
They
it.
should have
It was
continued. If Doom
incredible.
was such an artist and wanted to grow and develop, I felt like they should have had a run of
I mean, I
albums like
feel
Michael
like
and
that-
Quincy did.
I feel like sometimes a record like that is such a shooting star that
Yeah.
it's almost
Can't
criminal
recreate
to
it.
try and recreate it. Like
perhaps.
it was a Haley's Comet kind of record. It's like, wow, you're not gonna see that.
I feel like that
kind
really
of
put
perfect
Doom on the
combination.
map. That Bad
Yeah.
Villainy album really put him on another level to
Absolutely,
the stratosphere and firmly cemented him in the annals of hip hop history in the minds of most of the listeners who were into creativity and
I mean,
imagination.
it's in my
of
top
rhyme.
10. It's in my top 10 albums ever. So definitely my top 10 albums.
That's a huge statement to make. I mean, but from a creative
There's
standpoint,
no song on there. There's no song on there that is like dismissible.
there was no weak
whatsoever.
efforts on the man. In the cover, let's talk about the artwork for a second. The cover was just menacing and
Bananas.
intimidating. It was unbelievable.
Bananas.
I mean,
It's
MF
it's like,
Doom
this is
had
the
a
villain.
he had a phenomenal career, and his contribution to hip hop will be missed, and it won't be overlooked, and it can't be overstated how great he was, how he packed so much meaning in his lines and bars. It wasn't just flipping
Oh,
words
man.
or saying things in a slick way.
You
It was so much
there's
depth and
often
packed
a
in each bar.
quadruple meaning to each line in a verse.
As a writer, you know that's hard to do.
Like
and still make it sound good.
there'd be the on the regular surface level,
Right.
the entendre level, then it's like the deeper reference level.
It was
and
triple
then,
entendres.
and then a lot of times there'd be like a deeper metaphysical, spiritual level that only a certain percentage of people are going to even
Right.
catch that part.
And then he'll just get you with the regular old premise setup punchline, the regular line, and they'll go
Yeah,
back
yeah.
into
He was real good with
the
that.
internal rhyme schemes were incredible as well.
And the punchlines were never like your typical like, oh yeah, I've heard somebody flip that kind of entendre or
No.
punchline before. It was always something like, oh, that's a different way to do it. Like,
I mean, the way his brain worked, the way his mind worked was just different than the rest of us. He was definitely someone who was operating on a
get
different
more
frequency.
cheese than Doritos, Cheetos, or Fritos. Like, one of my favorite lines in the history of words is simply got more soul than a sock with a hole.
Whoa.
Like how simple
I'm
yet how
marveling.
profound.
I'm
How many
marveling at
the dual layers there.
Yeah, you definitely have to give it to him. But this is only a one-part episode. We're going to talk about Doom some more on the show on the Are You Serious podcast. But
Indubitably.
we just wanted to give this guy his
Levels.
just due and his respect for what he contributed to the culture and the genre that we all love, that we've all are practitioners of, the art form of emceeing. And we want to pay homage to his contribution to hip hop culture for sure. But
Indeed.
Kareem Ali,
Rest in bars to the
Kareem Ali
mass
TV, my man Slankster Hughes, aka Slick Vic Low, from the Are You Serious podcast. We'll see you next time.
So I have to stand here today as what I was when I was born, a black man.
Your racism bounces off me, I'm bulletproof. Your prejudice gets deflected, I'm bulletproof. Your hatred can't penetrate me, I'm bulletproof. Our minds can't be shackled no more, nah, we know the truth. Yeah, from the spot that Malcolm stood.